All right, today we're going deep. We're talking about one of the most mysterious and, frankly, feared figures in Islamic tradition, the Dajjal. We're going to deconstruct who he is, what his great trial is all about, and how this whole epic story is meant to conclude in a final, massive confrontation. So let's start with a big question. When you think about all of human history, who is the greatest deceiver of all time? Well, according to Islamic teachings, the single greatest test humanity will ever face comes from just one person. But who is he? To get to the bottom of that, we're going to break this down into 5 key parts. First, we'll figure out who the Dajjal actually is. Then, we'll look at the signs that are supposed to signal his arrival. After that, we'll dive into the nature of his terrifying test, witness how the final battle is supposed to play out, and most importantly, we'll explore how to find protection from this ultimate trial. Okay, let's jump right in. First things first, who, or maybe what, exactly is the Dajjal? Well, the name itself, Dajjal, literally comes from the Arabic root word for deception. It's in a form that means the greatest deceiver. Now, here's a really crucial point. The traditions are very clear that he is a personality, a specific individual. Some modern theories try to say that Dajjal is just a metaphor for technology, like the one-eyed camera you might see in this picture. But the sources push back on that. They insist we're talking about an actual person. And his arrival is described as the greatest fitnah in all of human history. Now, fitnah is a powerful Arabic word. It means a trial, sure, but it's a special kind of trial. It's a test so confusing, so disorienting, that it's like trying to find your way in the dead of night with no moon and no stars. It's designed to completely mess with your perception of what's real and what's fake. And that's what makes his deception so incredibly powerful. And get this isn't just some abstract prophecy for the distant future. There's this incredible, almost cinematic story from one of the Prophet Muhammad's companions, a man named Tamim al-Dari, that suggests the Dajjal, well, that he already exists, and that he's just waiting, in chains, to be let loose on the world. So the story goes, Tamim al-Dari and his crew get shipwrecked on this remote island. The first thing they run into is this bizarre, hairy creature that calls itself Jassasa, which means the spy. This creature leads them to a man, a huge man, bound in heavy chains, and this man tells them, "I am the Dajjal." But then he starts grilling them with questions, not about them, but about the state of the world. He was basically a prisoner, listening for the sounds of the world outside to know when his time had come. So what were those signs? What specific things was he listening for? Let's take a look. He asked them about some really specific things, like the water level of the Sea of Galilee and whether certain date palm gardens were still bearing fruit. When they told him, yes, there's still water and fruit, he knew his time wasn't yet. You see, these were like items on his release checklist. But the traditions make it clear that the final, absolute trigger for his emergence will be the appearance of a righteous leader known as Imam Mahdi. So once he's out, what's the big deal? What exactly is his ultimate test? This is where we really get to the heart of his terrifying power. The prophecy says that Dajjal will be on Earth for just 40 days. But here's the twist. These are not going to be 40 normal days. The very experience of time itself is going to feel completely warped. The first day will feel like it lasts for an entire year. The second day will feel like a month. The third, like a week. And only then will the remaining 37 days feel normal. Now, whether that's a literal shift in time or just a reflection of how agonizing those first few days will be, the point is the same. It's an intense, confusing period designed to absolutely shatter your spirit. And this is his method. It's brilliant in its cruelty. He will have control over the world's resources. We're talking food, water, all of it. And he'll present humanity with an impossible choice. He'll say, accept me as your Lord, and you can enter my heaven, which is full of worldly comfort and food, or reject me and I'll throw you into my hell, which is starvation and poverty. It is the ultimate test of faith versus survival. It's basically a psychological siege on a global scale.
But this unbelievable trial doesn't go on forever. The traditions actually lay out a very clear, very dramatic sequence of events that leads to the final showdown.
It all kicks off with Imam Mahdi uniting the believers. They're said to conquer Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, with nothing but chance of faith. No swords, no weapons. And it's right at that moment of pure spiritual victory that the news breaks. The Dajjal is here. And that's when the ultimate game changer happens. Jesus, son of Mary, returns. He will descend in Damascus, not with a new religion, but as a follower of the Prophet Muhammad, to lead the final battle and personally defeat the Dajjal, ending his reign of terror for good.
Okay, I know this all sounds incredibly intense, maybe even overwhelming. So that leads us to the most practical question of all. How could anyone possibly find protection from a trial that massive?
Well, the source material gives us 3 very clear strategies. The first one, and this is the most important, avoidance. The advice is to flee. Don't be arrogant and think you can take him on. Just get away. The second is a kind of spiritual armor, reciting the first 10 verses of the 18th chapter of the Quran, which is called Surah Al-Kahf. And the third is about a totally different kind of food. When people asked what believers would eat when the Dajjal controls everything, the answer was that their praise of God would nourish them, just like it nourishes the angels. So what's so special about Surah Al-Kahf? Well, inside that chapter is the story of the people of the cave, a group of young believers who ran from religious persecution and hid in a cave, where God saved them. So the point is, this isn't just a cool story from the past. It's meant to be a strategic blueprint for how to survive a major trial of faith. But how does that work today? I mean, you can't exactly run to a physical cave in our interconnected world of GPS and surveillance. So the modern takeaway is this. You have to build a virtual cave, a sanctuary that isn't made of rock and stone, but of community and shared belief. This virtual cave is all about building a network, a community that's grounded in faith. It means making a conscious choice to make belief the foundation of your entire life. Who you marry, your circle of friends, how you do business, the values you teach your kids. When you do that, you're creating a protective spiritual and social fortress. It's a community that can support itself and withstand the lies of the outside world, no matter where you physically live. That becomes your shield. And all of this brings us to one final, really provocative question. When you look at our world today, a world where deception is a fine art, where materialism is practically a religion, and where the line between truth and lies gets blurrier every single day, you have to ask yourself, are we just waiting for the Dajjal? Or are we, right now, building the very civilization that's ready to welcome him? That's something to think about.